Okay, let's jump right in. There's this line from the source material we're looking at today. Data saves lives, but only if it's secure.
Powerful stuff.
And it really hit home, doesn't it? If you're in healthcare, you're sitting on just mountains of potentially life-changing information. EHRs, billing, research,
Yeah, absolutely invaluable, potentially.
but actually using it,
Yeah.
putting it to work, that feels like walking through a minefield. You've got HIPAA breathing down your neck, the constant worry about violations.
It's a huge tension. You want to innovate, use modern tools, maybe get everything into the cloud for better analytics. But PHI, protected health information, it changes the game completely. The regulations are just so strict.
Which is exactly why we're doing this deep dive on tools like Fivetran, these automated data integration platforms. They promise to make connecting data sources to, say, a data warehouse much easier.
Yeah, they're definitely getting traction in healthcare because of that promise of efficiency.
But the big question, the one our source tackles head on, and what we want to unpack today is, can you actually trust a tool like Fivetran with PHI? Is it like IPA ready straight out of the box?
And the short answer, well, it's complicated. The source makes it really clear it's not a simple yes or no. Understanding who's responsible for what, that's critical.
Before we get into that nuance, maybe just quickly, why is PHI so different? It's not just customer data, is it?
No, not at all. And the source really underscores this. We're talking about the most personal information imaginable, diagnoses, treatments, conditions, stuff linked directly to an individual.
Yeah.
Mishandling it isn't just a financial risk. It's a profound breach of privacy and trust. It can lead to real harm, discrimination even.
And huge legal penalties for the organization, too. IPAJ doesn't mess around.
Exactly. It's a massive legal and ethical responsibility. So choosing any tool that touches this data, like Fivetran, it's a high-stakes decision.
Okay, so that brings us to the core point from the source. How does Fivetran actually stack up against IPA requirements?
Right. So the source is really direct here. Fivetran is not HIPAA compliant out of the box. That's the absolute starting point. You can't just switch it on and assume you're covered.
Okay, not compliant out of the box, but
And this is just as important, the source confirms it can be used as part of a HIPAA compliant process. It's usable, but it takes work.
so it's got the potential, but it needs the right setup and handling.
Precisely. It requires very specific actions and configurations by you, the user. The source uses this great analogy. Think of Fivetran like a car. It might have great safety features built in, solid engineering, but the car itself isn't inherently safe. Safe use depends on the driver, the road conditions, how you actually use those features.
Right, the tool is just one part of the equation.
Exactly. HIPAA compliance isn't just about the software. It's about your entire approach, your processes, your environment, who holds the legal and technical responsibility.
That makes sense. So what are the absolute must-haves, according to the source, to use Fivetran securely with PHI in a HIPAA-compliant way?
The source really boils it down to three key things. First, and you just can't skip this, the Business Associate Agreement, or BAA.
The BAA. Right, that term is everywhere when you talk IPA and vendors. Why is it so fundamental here?
Well, under IPA, if you're a covered entity, like a hospital or clinic, and you hire a business associate, a vendor like Fivetran to handle PHI for you, you must have a BAA.
It's a legal requirement.
It's a legal contract. Fivetran has to sign it, giving written assurance they'll protect the data according to HIPAA standards. The source is emphatic. Get that BAA signed before any PHI flows through their system. No BAA means immediate compliance risk.
Got it. Legal foundation first. What's number two?
Number two is understanding the data handling responsibility. Fivetran's job, primarily, is moving data. They encrypt it securely while it's in transit, moving from your source, like an EHR, to your destination.
Okay, secure transport.
Yes, but crucially, Fivetran doesn't store the PHI long-term within its own systems.
So they're the secure courier, not the secure vault at the end.
Exactly, and that's where the responsibility shifts. The source clearly states that securing the data at rest once it lands in your data warehouse, maybe Snowflake, like the source mentions, that's entirely on your organization.
So we need to make sure our warehouse is locked down with encryption and access controls.
Absolutely. Fivetran gets it there safely, but you own the security of its final destination.
Okay, so BAA first, then understand the shared responsibility, especially for data at rest. What's the third requirement?
The third is careful, deliberate configuration of Fivetran itself. The platform does have features to help manage risk with sensitive data.
Like what kind of features?
Things like setting up least privilege access, making sure systems or users syncing data only see the absolute minimum they need, using secure connections like SSH tunnels, maybe using field-level controls to mask or block certain sensitive fields.
And these aren't turned on by default, I'm guessing? The user has to actively set them up?
Precisely. Your technical team must configure these properly. And here's a critical warning from the source. Messing up this configuration. Granting too much access, using a weak connection, not masking data properly, that's not just a technical mistake.
It's a compliance breach.
That's what the source says. It could directly lead to a HIPAA violation.
Wow. So using Fivetran compliantly isn't passive at all. It takes legal groundwork, understanding the technical lines, and really careful setup.
Totally. The burden of compliance really falls on the organization using the tool. Fivetran provides the means, but the secure use is down to you.
Let's make this really practical with that example. The source used the hospital CIO. What are they trying to achieve?
Okay, so imagine this CIO. They want to pull data from their EHR system and maybe their billing system into a central data warehouse like Snowflake.
Right, for analytics. Improve care efficiency.
Exactly. Predict readmissions, optimize staffing, whatever. Using Fivetran promises to automate building those data pipelines, saving tons of engineering effort compared to doing it manually.
Makes sense. Efficiency is key. But how could this go wrong from a compliance perspective, even with Fivetran?
Well, the source highlights a few ways. One, just starting without getting that signed BAA from Fivetran. Instant risk.
Okay.
Two, configuring it to just sync everything, entire databases from the EHR or billing systems, instead of just the specific tables and fields needed for the analysis.
That's the data minimization principle violation, right?
Yeah.
Taking way more than you need.
Precisely, like hauling the whole library when you just needed one specific chapter. And third, not securing the credentials Fivetran uses to connect to the source systems, if those leak.
Oh man, that could expose the entire source system potentially.
Yeah.
Nightmare scenario.
Absolutely. So how does the source say you do it right?
Yeah, how do you make Fivetran a compliant asset, not a liability?
This is where expertise becomes crucial. The source stresses you need an implementation team that understands both the tech and IPA. They wouldn't just connect the pipes.
They built in safeguards.
Exactly. They'd set up strong SSH tunnels, lock down permissions, so Fivetran only accesses the bare minimum data required, use secure credential management, ensure robust audit logging is on. It's about meticulous security-first configuration.
So you're layering these technical and process controls onto Fivetran's core function.
That's the key. Do that diligently, get the BAA, understand the responsibilities, configure everything carefully, and then Fivetran can be a valuable part of a secure, HIPAA-aligned data strategy. But it demands that expertise and rigor.
Okay, let's wrap this deep dive up. The core message from our source materials seems really clear. Fivetran is a powerful tool for automating data integration in healthcare, but IPA compliance is absolutely not included automatically.
No, definitely not. It hinges completely on your organization's processes, getting that foundational BAA signed, and then meticulously configuring the security features Fivetran offers. Plus, remembering you own the security of the data once it lands in your warehouse.
And the source notes, quite rightly, that this often requires specialized help. Companies focusing on healthcare data integration can be vital partners in navigating these decisions and building secure pipelines.
Yeah, it really highlights that a tool's technical power is only half the story. Understanding the regulations and implementing rigorously is just as critical, maybe even more so, with PHI.
So, reflecting on all this from the source, here's a final thought for you to chew on. When we rely on these flexible, user-configured tools for something as sensitive as PHI, how does that fundamentally shift the risk and responsibility for healthcare organizations? What blend of legal know-how, technical skill, and process discipline becomes absolutely non-negotiable for any healthcare team building these critical data pipelines today?